What's up, NBA fan? What's up, all sports fans? It's your boy JB, host of the Behind the Bench podcast networking channel, giving a shout out to the rest of the crew. Shy, Kelvin, KB Film Room, Big Dog Talk Sports. That's right, that's right. For everyone who's tuning in, thank you for supporting Behind the Bench. Subscribe to the channel. Help make these show the best that they can be. Let's get to it. NBA action or NBA talk or NBA rumor, however you want to put it. Remember, during the summer of 2016, baby, the summer of 2016, and the top free agent that offseason was none other than Kevin Durant. They used to call him the Durantula. Kevin Durant was considered an ambassador to the league. Kevin Durant was never really criticized or mocked by the talking heads or by the sports media. And Kevin Durant had won league MVP 2 years prior, back in 2014. And he participated in the Rucker tournament in New York, where he scored like 60 points, right? I think that's a record for any NBA player competing in the Rucker tournament. So Kevin Durant was a very likable figure, man. You know, drafted by the Seattle Supersonics before they moved to Oklahoma City, right? Kevin Durant played 1 year of college at the University of Texas, averaging over 25 points a game. Kevin Durant, 4-time scoring champion. You know, people may tend to forget that. And when he was up for free agency, in my mind, man, I was like, you know what, man? I said, he probably gonna stay at OKC. I don't see him leaving. And I thought about it, man. I said, you know what? He may leave Oklahoma City. Now, a lot of talking heads, man, it was like, well, if you leave Oklahoma City, if you go back home and play for, the Washington Wizards, because, he from Maryland, like in the like close to the D.C. area, Washington, D.C., they had no problems with that. They had no problems if he was to go to Washington. But, man, when he announced that he was going to Golden State, they lost their mind. They almost had a conniption. And people, y'all will understand why I'm bringing this up. Because there is a bias in this whole situation. Kevin Durant announces he's going to become a Golden State Warrior to play with Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, right? And they always say he joined a 73-win team. But what they don't mention is, man, Golden State let a lot of players go to bring Kevin Durant on board. And that was the offseason when the new TV deal was initiated that allowed the NBA to raise the salary cap for all 30 teams. So the stars lined up for Golden State to sign a player of KD's caliber outright without having to trade for him. But they did lose Harrison Barnes. They moved on from Harrison Barnes and players like Leandro Barbosa, the Brazilian blur. So technically that was not the same team. But nonetheless, he went to Golden State and they pitched the fit. They were, cats was crying and whining and saying, oh, it's unfair. Why KD going to Golden State? Blase. But what's funny and stuff? I remember one of them talking heads, man, they went live like within an hour of receiving the news that KD was going to Golden State, man, and they didn't even shave. Don't even seem like they ate breakfast. You know what I'm saying? They was sweating. You saw one guy, man, he just looked like he's about ready, on the verge of just passing out, because they knew that Kevin Durant was going to put that roadblock up to keep from who stacking the deck and winning more titles. The Hurricane. And they said, oh man, this is the weakest move ever in league history by any superstar in the history of the NBA and all this jazz. But they didn't say that 6 years prior during the summer of 2010 when the Hurricane joined forces. They joined forces. You see what I'm saying? They joined forces with Dwayne Hurricane, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh. And they was promoted. I kid you not. I remember it like it was yesterday. I consider myself a person who uphold history, the good and the bad. And they was announced to the world, promoted to the world, marketed to the world as the league's first super team in Miami, in South Beach. And, 5-6 years later, 5-6 years later, they're trying to tag this so-called era of super team and player empowerment. They're trying to tag it all on Kevin Durant. But Kevin Durant's not the person who started it, though. You see what I'm saying? And I remember when Golden State and Cleveland would eventually meet in the finals in 2017. I said, Kevin Durant, he gonna bust about 35 points a game. Because I remember what he did when OKC faced Miami Heat in the 2012 NBA Finals. Now, people say, well, that OKC was a super team too. No, they wasn't, because they drafted Kevin Durant. They drafted Russell Westbrook. They drafted James Harden. They drafted Serge Ibaka. They drafted Thabo Sefolosha. They didn't join forces. They were drafted. So when you draft somebody, you know what I'm saying, you would like to think they could turn into a star player, but you really don't know. That's the beauty of it. You have to scout players, you know what I'm saying, and develop them. You see what I'm saying? It's a totally different circumstance. But nonetheless, Kevin Durant averaged like 32, 33 points a game in the finals against Miami. Now, like I said, he's a 4-time scoring champion. He's one of the greatest scorers in league history. Top 5. I give him top 5. No question about it. But going into this series, man, Kevin, I'm trying to give this backdrop, man, and try to prove this bias that's going on right now. Kevin Durant in them finals, man, the playing field was even at that point because you had KD matched up with the Hurricane. You had Steph Curry matched up with Kyrie Irving. You had Klay Thompson matched up with, let's say, a J.R. Smith. And then you had Kevin Love matched up with Draymond Green. So it was an even playing field. And it came down to who was going to play better, particularly in the fourth quarters, between KD and the Hurricane. And KD outplayed the Hurricane in the fourth quarters. That was the determining factor. And KD went on to win his first championship in finals MVP. And Kevin Durant should have been recognized as the game's best player, but they held that against them. They held that against them, and they still do after all these years. But guess what? Guess what? They didn't lobby. The talking heads didn't lobby for Kevin Durant to go to Golden State. They was trying to force him out of Golden State. From the day that he touched ground coming off the airplane in Oakland, they were trying to push him out of there, man. They were trying to push him out of there because he was the ultimate roadblock. Then he finally leaves, goes to Brooklyn, right? So they was cool. They was halfway cool with KD at that point. They didn't really feel as threatened. And matter of fact, KD was out that whole year because, he had injured that Achilles during the finals against Toronto in 2019. So they weren't really tripping off KD at that point. But what's funny is, over the course of the past 3-4 days, they've been talking about the Hurricane should request a trade to go to the Golden State Warriors to play with Steph Curry. And this is where the bias kicks in, man. And this is why so many basketball fans out here have become so cynical about the league. Because when you try it, and it's obvious, when it's clear as day, it's right there in front of everybody to see. There is a bias And there is a concerted effort to always force the issue and try to make sure that their guy is in a favorable and advantageous position to win the championship. Always, man. Because they know that the Los Angeles Lakers, they really can't afford to make no more moves, because if they make another, a roster overhaul and blockbuster trade, this franchise basically will be curtains throughout the 2030s. Basically, because any trade that the Lakers would be forced to make, they're gonna be leveraged out, and they're gonna have to include the last two remaining draft picks that they have exclusive rights to, and that's in 2029 and 2031. They give up them 2 first-round picks. Fans of the purple and gold may as well just go into stealth mode till about the late 2030s. I'm not exaggerating. That's the scenario. And that's why Rob Pelinka, the GM of the team, that's why he's not making any moves. Because the franchise is on the brink of going into oblivion. But nonetheless, now all of a sudden, oh man, he need to go to Golden State, man. Play with Steph Curry, man. You know what I'm saying? Rock 'em, sock 'em, man. Dynamic duo. They can get it done. If he win a championship in Golden State, he definitely going down as the GOAT. And they gonna say, oh, first player ever to win 4 championships on 4 franchises. I want to ask this question. And this ain't even pertaining to the Hurricane per se. Is it harder to win 3 titles on 3 different teams when you get to handpick your squad to the point where you stacking the deck sky high? Or is it more difficult to win 5 to 6 championships on the same team? To me, when you apply logic, it's harder to win multiple championships on the same team, because more often than not, you're achieving that feat pretty much with the same roster that you started winning the championship with. That's why teams that have long-standing championship runs, that's why they refer to those teams as dynasties, because they die out nasty. Meaning that they're going to prove that it's going to be virtually impossible to beat them until they pretty much age out. And they're going to go out on their shield to where you're going to remember that team decades and decades and decades from now. That's what you call dynasties. The Boston Celtics was a dynasty. You see what I'm saying? Even when they weren't supposed to win, they won. That's a dynasty. When you're not supposed to win in certain situations and you still come out on top, that's what you call a dynasty. That's why they start calling them type of teams dynasties. But what I'm trying to say is, it's harder to win multiple championships on the same team because, number one, you're overcoming obstacles. You're overcoming new challengers. You're overcoming the attrition, right? With the same teammate. You're building that resolve. You're drawing from the reservoir of experience that propelled you to victory in the first place. So to me, it is harder, and it stands out more for a player to win multiple championships over a period of time with one franchise, or let's just say the team that drafted you, then bouncing from team to team, getting to stack the deck, try to run the table. And deep down, everybody knows this. I'm not saying anything that nobody don't know, but in today's climate of the past 14 years, the narrative would suggest that, the opposite should be celebrated more, when it's the furthest thing from the truth. But the bias in this situation, man, because if I'm just being hypothetical, I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's just a lot of talk to try to put pressure on the Lakers front office to cave into this guy one more time, as if they let him go, that they won't be able to breathe and survive, when actually they will. Not only will they breathe and survive, they can exhale or excel and breathe anything a sigh of relief. You see what I'm saying? Because they're not winning with this guy. But what I'm trying to say is, man, What I'm trying to say is the bias, man. When we try to share with the fans of the Hurricane that this bias and this agenda has existed for the better part of 15 years, man. And it's like, if this was any other player and they was doing this for, we'd be saying the same thing. If this was Kevin Durant they was doing this for, we'd be saying, oh man, Kevin Durant, they trying to stack the deck. They always trying to get help for KD. You don't hear them saying, Giannis need more help. They ain't saying that. They were trying to get Giannis out of Milwaukee to form a super team. You see what I'm saying? And it's so, I mean, it's like they do it with a lack of, like, it's beyond a lack of awareness, man. They just so bold with it, man, because their position is not being challenged. What I mean by not being challenged is for someone to present to them the reality that what they doing is not based on anything pertinent to credible journalism or credible commentary. You didn't see personalities and voices on sports shows back then lobbying for certain superstars to get help. No, you know what they said back then? The superstar has to lead the way. They have to lead their team if they want to be viewed as the best in the game. They did that towards Michael Jordan. They said the same thing. They said, Michael Jordan, if you want to be seen on the same level as Magic and Bird, you got to lead your team. Even when Scottie Pippen and Horace Grant were rookies or whatnot, and they was just getting started, they said you have to lead your team. No questions asked. No questions asked. Or when Magic Johnson lost in the finals in 1984 to the Celtics, and he, he made bad plays during stretches, certain games of the series that led to them losing to the Celtics. Well, they didn't say, well, Magic need help. No, they said, Magic, you got to get better. Same thing for Bird. That's how it was. That's why they call them superstars. They did the same thing with Hakeem Olajuwon, man. They said eventually at some point, Hakeem going to have to lead his team to the championship to be considered one of the all-time greats. And then once he did, he was considered, rightfully so, as an all-time great. The commentary was different then, man. They maintained a standard. They established a standard, and they maintained it, and they didn't compromise their standard or lower the bar for anybody. They didn't do it for Kobe Bryant. When Shaq got traded, Shaquille O'Neal got traded to Miami Heat, they said, Kobe, you got to get it done. Period. I mean, whether people may have thought it was unfair or not, that's how they analyzed and critiqued the league. Meaning, if you a superstar, if you want to be viewed on level with this guy and that guy that has won championships in the past, this is what you got to do. Period. But in this current climate, man, when it feel like he losing the advantage, man, or a team is running out of moves, they gonna try to force the issue and try to force him out of there or encourage him to leave. I'm telling you, man, I can give you example after example after example after example after example where this is taking place, man. And this is why KD said what he said 6 years ago when he said the environment surrounding that guy is toxic. That hit them in such a way, man. That was like an uppercut, a cross-cut combination, a jab, a right hook. You know what I'm saying? 1-2 combination. It rocked them. It totally rocked their world. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know what to say. They had to recalibrate, man. And what did they do? They proved what he said was right. They didn't scale it back. No, they upped the ante. You see what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, if he was to do this, man, this would be worse than what they think KD's move was. And I'm gonna tell you why. Because, okay, KD, he left OKC, man, and part of me wish he didn't leave OKC. You know what I'm saying? You know, him and Westbrook built they had a very successful team, very competitive team down in OKC. But I can sit there and say, you know what? KD was drafted in 2017. He left OKC in 2016, so he played 9 seasons for their franchise. Okay, so you sit there and say, okay, man, he didn't jet out of there early. You know what I'm saying? And they didn't break the bank to try to put KD in a position to win or try to create a team where they would mortgage their future away. So when he left, you still had Westbrook there, who was still good enough to lead that team to the playoffs. You know what I'm saying? And Westbrook won a league MVP the year after KD left. Matter of fact, the season after KD left, Westbrook won that MVP for when he became the first player to officially average a triple-double throughout the season. And you still had Steven Adams there. You still had a darn good team there. And then they would bring in Paul George and Carmelo Anthony, But the reason why this would be worse is the Lakers have done everything for this dude. Everything. And then some times 10. They've done more for him than both of his stints in Cleveland and Miami combined. Because I can sit here and say, in Cleveland, which was his home team, so his first stint, I can sit here and say, you know what? They was trying to build a team around him. They didn't mortgage their future off. They was trying to build a team around him, over 7 years, to the point where they was winning 60 games in consecutive seasons. Picked to win it all. So when he fell short, they blame the front office, even though they did everything. When they, going into the playoffs, they feel confident. The talking heads feel confident he was going to win it all. Okay, Miami, they joined forces with 3 franchise players joined forces in the Eastern Conference, so they ran the table, went to 4 straight finals. Now the Lakers, man, they gave up everything, man. The franchise been tailored off. The young core was more let go, waived, traded off. You know what I'm saying? Cap space misappropriated, draft picks siphoned off. You see what I'm saying? But they gonna sit there at the end of the day and say that they've done nothing for this dude, and they trying to hold him back when they've done everything for this dude. See, but they know that the Lakers have done everything for this dude, and outside of 1 year, they're not doing anything. But that's why they have to give that explanation. And it's really a manipulation of thought by people who tune in and listen to what these people are saying. So all of a sudden, these rumors coming out. Like I said, I think it's just a rumor, man. Like I said, I'm gonna be elated. I'm going to celebrate when he's no longer on the team. And this is nothing personal, man. It's nothing about what a player or athlete do off the court or off the field or whatnot. It's about, man, the way he operate within the NBA, man. Because there's no reason in the world why a franchise in the NBA should be trading away and let go of an entire roster of young talent. This is unprecedented what's going on. Scrapping the roster 6 years straight and replacing it with, 8 or 9 players a whop. That ain't normal, man. And they're not getting anything out of this deal, but they gonna always tag it and place the blame on the front office, man. And that's the way this deal was set up the whole time. So now they want to try to free him from that situation and try to, direct him somewhere where, a franchise that had tremendous success over the past decade, winning 4 championships. But they want to compare this guy to Michael Jordan. And sometimes you gotta laugh at it, man, because they be having the audacity to try to convince people that these two players are on equal footing, man. It's not even close. Because I can sit here and say, back then, the league was trying to keep Jordan from winning. Meaning that you had teams out there, man, that use every tactic imaginable to try to keep the man from scoring. You had a team out there in Detroit whose sole mission was for everybody on the team, from the starting five to the second unit, to focus and zone in on stopping one guy. So basically the whole organization. Well, this situation is the total reverse. An entire organization is being asked, enforced, and pushed and prodded to give of itself and everything in between to help this dude win. And the only people who's really losing out is the organization itself. They can't afford to make no more moves. If they make, I'm telling you, man, if they make another, this is for Laker fans out here. If that front office try to make another move, a blockbuster move, at the exempt of what we should have the opportunity to build on in the future, well, it's curtains. You may well say it's been a great ride. Because they will be practically non-existent in the 2030s. Only memory. That's what we look, man. You look at these teams building up, man. OKC, Houston is back. Cleveland's rolling. Boston, they right there in their prime. They may win it. They may go back to back this year. I mean, it could get ugly real quick. So you got so many people, pulling and pride, man. It's like a tug of war. They want the front office, man. They want them to compete for now and win now, but build for the future at the same time. That just show you there is a miscommunication there. It's like a wedge. It's not a natural flow. This is why you don't go this route. If you're starting all over again, you build accordingly to where you're not being asked to do both at the same time. Because if you build right, the winning will come and take care of itself. And you can still approach the future on a year-by-year basis. Because you have a future to sustain you. But when you mortgage it all off, now it's just smoke and mirrors, and you pulling for straws. You hoping and wishing. But this is clear bias, because when Kevin Durant went to Golden State, it didn't cost OKC. They didn't crash. See, Cleveland crashed twice. OKC didn't crash. Now, they weren't a championship caliber team, but they still competed as a playoff level team. And then they made a couple of moves. They brought in Paul George, who, had an MVP level season his first year in OKC. I think he was third in MVP voting that year. That James Harden eventually won. And then they had Melo there for a minute. But at the end of the day, man, Victor Oladipo. No, they traded Victor Oladipo to bring in Paul George. But at the end of the day, man, the bias, man, and they be acting like people don't remember, dog. They had like 2016. They had like 2016 was like 60 years ago. I remember with the reaction was they hated that KD. They panicked. It's like, oh man, our guy's not gonna win nothing now. Because the playing field was even. They gonna tell you that Golden State had this insurmountable advantage. Well, this is for history right here. When that super team Miami was formed in summer 2010, you had prognosticators out there predicting that they was gonna win 70 games and challenge the single season of victory mark set by the Chicago Bulls in '96 when they won 72 games. When KD went to Golden State, they didn't even predict they was going to win 70 games. You see what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, man, the bias, I've never seen nothing like it. In one way, it's comical, but another way, man, like I said, the NBA dynamic, man, is taking a major hit, and I think it carries over to the fans out there who's growing more cynical with the activity uh, associated with the league, and even with this in-season tournament, ratings have declined compared to last year when the in-season tournament debuted. People not tuning in, man. That's why I say the league needs to move forward. Because what I don't like about it is they trying to pair two superstars, right? And they're gonna try to make more moves if that was to happen. And these veteran teams, the veteran players, man, they've had their run, man. They had the opportunity to try to surpass someone. You know what I'm saying? But these young teams on the uptick, on the rise, you know, that's excelling and ascending in the league, in the Western Conference and in the Eastern Conference. When you do that, you penalize those young teams that are doing it right and doing it by the book. You're penalizing them, and that's what hurts the league. That's not what happened in the past, right? Lakers and Celtics had a run in the 80s, man. Then, Philadelphia broke through in 83 and won the title. Moses Malone and Dr. J. And then here come the bad boy Pistons who built their team up over 8 years. And here come the Chicago Bulls who built their team up over 7 years. And then Houston Rockets went back to back. Then you had a lot of expansion teams that started to excel. Orlando went to the finals within 6 years of existence, winning 60 games. Miami Heat, boom, here they come with Alonzo Mourning, Jamal Nash, Burn, Dan Marley, Tim Hardaway. They start cracking 55 wins, 60 wins. You see what I'm saying? So what I'm trying to say is nobody was given an unfair advantage, man. Like if you had an advantage, is what you built up from within the organization, not from trying to take away, trying to poach a superstar to your team at the expense of another franchise where you totally eliminate them from the landscape, you know, and that's what's hurting the league, man. And like I said, man, you don't want to disregard what veteran players have done and playing for the league a long time. But you penalize the Anthony Edwards of the league in Minnesota. You penalize the Shea Gilgeous-Alexanders and OKCs. You penalize, like a Jalen Green in Houston. When the Pelicans, before all these injuries hit, you penalize, young stars like a B.I., Brandon Ingram. You penalize the Orlando Magic and what they're doing. You penalize those teams because you're pushing for an unlevel playing field, man. And because of that, it makes the teams that are doing it the right way appear that they're not measuring up. But in all actuality, they are. You see. And this is where, competitive integrity has to be preserved, man. Now, what I'm saying is if a team is built up from scratch and they dominate and just, beat everybody in sight, well, that's credit to the organization for knowing how to put the team together and knowing what players to bring forth together to build that kind of team. But when you try to manipulate the system, a la shortcuts to try to, stay on par, well, that's what creates all the chaos, man. And then young players, they get discouraged and either, they're going to try to do the same thing or they feel that, well, what's the use of me trying to get better? And then they just kind of level off. You see what I'm saying? Oh, it's a lot of negative aspects to what's going on, man. But the bias is clear. Back in 2016, man, the media turned on Kevin Durant at the snap of a finger, man, overnight. But this guy, they're going to operate with impunity, man. They're going to operate with impunity, man, because ultimately they want him to be viewed as the greatest player of all time, dog. And that's why they've been pushing on Jordan, trying to push him down, trying to distort his career and what he achieved in any aspect of his career, anything associated during the years that he played. They trying to tarnish, man. And it's sad, and it's bringing down the league, man. And at no time in league history did you see that happening with any superstar in any previous decade in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s, dog. So it comes down to, do the league really want to move forward, or do they want to continue with the nonsense, dog? Meanwhile, our all-time franchise is caught up in the mix of all this. They caught right up in the middle, man, and they being stretched thin. And when all this over, man, they gonna say what they've been saying: ownership no good, GM need to step down. They don't know what they doing. They don't know how to put no team together. When they said last year, going into last season, that the Lakers made the best free agent moves of any team in the league. They had the deepest roster in the NBA, and they was ready to claim the championship. That's what they said. And this is why right now, man, I don't even tune in. I'll put it this way. As of right now, there's no use of me tuning in. Why? When my eyes are telling me and logic is telling me that whatever window they was talking about, that window was shut right after that bubble. It was shut. That was all she wrote. And that's what they're not understanding. You cannot go from the oldest team in the league to the oldest team in the league overnight, within a year. You see what I'm saying? You became the oldest team way before their reality should have even existed. So what do you think is going to happen in between time? But once again, they trying to put their guy in the most favorable position available, dog. And this has been the constant theme of the past 15 years. And they're going to continue doing that until he retires from the NBA. And that is the reality. But as I said in my previous video, I'd be thrilled and excited and elated when I get my team back. I just want to drop that nugget. Till next time, this is JB or BTB behind the bench.